What's up, guys? This is Eric Vasquez here from teachmetodesign.com. Now, if you saw my last video, you will see how we kind of put this image together, this composite here. And with football season well underway, I decided why not come back to this, revisit this image, and show you guys a few things that you can do to push it further, add some dramatic, cinematic type of quality to this image. So with that in mind, let's get started. Alright, now you'll see in here I already have my smart object inside of this player group folder layer. The first thing I want to do is go and double click on this and take this drop shadow out. That was just kind of there as an example. Alright, now next thing I want to do, just turn that layer off, is make sure you have the player layer selected. I want to bring out some of the detail. Now this actually works really well whenever you have a dark image, or you want to bring out some of the texture and the nice details in a dark hair, dark clothing, that kind of stuff. You come up here to the image menu, go to adjustments, and then you'll see this thing called shadows and highlights. Click on that, and what this is going to do is really bring out the shadows. You can basically blow out your shadows, but it actually brings out a lot of detail in the image. You can just see that turning the preview on and off, what that's doing right there. Go ahead and click OK, and most of the time I'm just kind of playing around with it to see what it looks like, but I think that looks pretty good. And again, because this is a smart object, you can always come back to it and change it later if you want to. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is come in the background folder, and we're going to do something here with the field. Now, I guess I'm probably going to make this a smart object for now. We can always change it later if we need to, but because I want to apply some filters here. I want to apply a sharpen filter just to get a little bit more detail out of the background, out of the grass and the crowd and things like that. But let's say we just want the sharpen effect on the grass, not so much the crowd and the lights and everything like that. One thing we can do is press Command J to duplicate the field smart object, and come to the original one on the bottom here and turn off the unsharp mask. Now when you turn that on and off, you'll see the difference here a little bit. You can tell in the crowd, in the background, in the grass. But to actually see that, we're going to have to apply a layer mask to the field. Just go ahead and click the Add Layer Mask button. Select your gradient tool, pressing G on the keyboard, or just come over here and select it. If you have the paint bucket tool selected, you can just toggle that by pressing Shift and G, and you'll kind of scroll through the other options that are available. Alright, so I could do it this way and remove this image by painting black, or like I showed you guys in the previous video, I can actually invert the mask to completely get rid of the layer on top with the sharpening effect applied. And then if I want to bring it back in, I'm actually going to use a white to transparent gradient and drag from the bottom up. Now you'll see that the sharpening effect is only on the grass, not really the crowd, not really the sky or anything like that. Okay, so that's what we want. Next thing, come back down and add another adjustment layer. This time I think we'll go with levels. Now you'll see up here on the histogram, you've got these kind of three handles or sliders here that you can play with. So I want to drag the white one in a little bit to try and get a little more brightness out of the sky and this light back here, and not so much the grass and the crowd, I don't think. But let's see how it looks if we actually take some of that out. Now, much like using a layer mask on an image, you can also use them on these adjustment layers. They actually come with a layer mask attached to them already. So if I switch back to black and use my gradient tool to click and drag from the bottom up, you'll notice here that it's kind of faded out. And you'll see now it's only on the top part of the image, which is okay. That's exactly what we're going for. So we're on track there. The next thing I want to do is another adjustment layer. This time we'll select hue saturation. Again, I know in the this layer We desaturated it, set it to soft light at about 50%. But this time, we're going to play with the colorize option here. And with the colorize checked off, it just means it's going to, add this overall tone or hue to the whole image. You can give it that kind of vintage looking feel, a sepia tone if you will, or you can actually make it really saturated and blow it out. And you can just, experiment and see what you like here, because you can always, undo it or go back. Let's say we want this kind of cyan or bluish background. And again, you can come in, experiment with some of the different blending modes and see what looks best to you. Turn it on and off. That gives it kind of a cold nighttime feel. All right, and I don't know if you necessarily want it, blue or not. I'm just kind of experimenting, and this is, 95% of the time, you can come across these happy mistakes, and sometimes you keep them, sometimes you don't. All right, right now, see, I can lower the opacity to around 20% just for a more subtle kind of effect. It just kind of balances out the colors a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is actually come in here to the player image, and I want to show you guys, if you double click the smart object and you're in here, you can actually go and add an adjustment layer inside of the smart object. And you'll see right there I just added a clipping mask to it. What I want to do is maybe take a look at changing the colors on the jersey. And you can kind of, you see what's happening here. It's just changing. I'm just kind of going through and seeing what looks good. I might want this blue. And what I'm going to do next is invert the mask and then just take a white brush and kind of just quickly paint over, the reddish areas to change that to my new color. And you can do this with several adjustment layers if you want more than one color. I mean, it works the same way. So you could have, these little details and the trim be blue, and you can mix it with, orange or leave some of the original red in there. Anything you want. And you don't have to keep any of this, but I'm just doing this to show you guys some of the cool things that you can do as far as photo compositing and putting a scene together. You can really get in there and tweak the crap out of these images. So just kind of quick and dirty going in here. Gonna finish this little section here and then go back to a previous image. And if I leave the background kind of cold feeling, I think that's why I'm thinking the blue might look good, but who knows? We may want to go back and actually change the color of the background in a step. Just a second. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and clean up this area around the neck a little bit. You want to be careful of the edges. I'm trying to go, pretty quick and everything, but you still want to pay attention to the details like that. Alright, so now I'm just going to press Command S to save it and Command W to close this window. And there you go. Now it's updated in here. I'm going to turn the rain layer back on. Just take a look at that for a second. And one thing that I want to touch on really quick is whenever you have a layer mask, you'll see that there's this little link or chain in between them. If you turn that off, you can actually then, change the positioning of this without affecting the layer mask. The layer mask is going to stay exactly where it is because it's no longer linked to this image. Alright, so you can feel free to move that around, and then whenever you're happy with it, just click it again. You can do the same thing with the mask itself actually. If you wanted it to fade up higher, or you kind of get the idea. Alright, so I'm not sure that I like this bluish tone I've got going on. I actually think that looks a little bit nicer, so I'm gonna go ahead and just turn that layer off for now. But one cool thing that I like to do with some of my images sometimes is I'll select the gradient tool, a radial gradient actually, with a white to transparent gradient like that. I'll bring this in front and then change the blending mode of this layer to overlay or something. You can kind of get certain areas to pop out, and I'm going to use a free transform, Command T, and then hold down the Shift key and drag inwards from any of these four corners to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to duplicate it just by pressing Command J. It's another good shortcut to remember. And just, place a few of these, and, don't be afraid to change the size and just play around and see what looks good. And, if it looks good to you one moment and then not the next, it's it's okay. You're not destroying your whole image here. It's just about experimenting and trying some stuff out. So now that I have these 5 gradients here, I'm going to throw them in a folder, call it overlays, and then just show you guys real quick, turn that on and off. You're starting to get like kind of a cool, gritty movie poster feel almost. And to take it one step further, I'm going to come back here to the football player smart object, hold down the Command key, click on the thumbnail, and now you'll see I have this selection activated again. Now you don't have to do that. You could also come back here to your work path that I created in my previous video and click on that. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer, fill it with white, and then we're going to come up here to select, modify, contract, and bring the selection in by about 4 or 5 pixels. And then go ahead and press the delete key. So what you'll be left with is basically a white outline around this whole image, or around the player rather, which you can see here. Okay, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to change the blending mode to overlay, and then come up here to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And this is way too high. I'm just going to turn it down, maybe about 5, somewhere around there. And basically we want to get this kind of nice rim light effect. Now I don't know, I think I probably should have made the stroke slightly larger by bringing in the selection a little more. So maybe instead we'll go 8 pixels. We'll go twice that. Actually, let's undo just to exaggerate it a little bit so you guys get an idea. Let's say 15. Okay, same thing, hit delete, change it to overlay, and then we're going to blur it again. And now you can kind of see on the inside of the arms, the jersey, it's starting to pop out a little bit more. And you may decide, again, that you don't want this all over the entire image. Maybe you just want to, have certain areas pop out. So what you do, you just add a layer mask and you can kind of brush it out. I don't really like the way that looks on his forearms, but it looks pretty cool, around the top and the side of his jersey, even a little bit on the hands. All right, I'm going to zoom out, and you'll notice that I actually missed part of the adjustment that I made in here. I didn't notice it because it was so dark, but because we applied that shadow and highlights adjustment in our main document, it's showing me some of the imperfections there and some of the areas that I actually missed. So I'm just going to come back in and fix that. Now you don't have to do your retouching and your adjustments inside of the smart object. I'm just doing that to show you guys. Let's come back out and add a new layer on top. Come back to your gradient tool and switch the color to black. And with the radial gradient selected, we're actually going to hit reverse. So what that'll do is reverse the gradient. Rather than radiating from the inside out, it'll go from the outside in. And then click and drag from the center outwards, and it'll kind of create this nice vignetted effect. You'll see it kind of darkens the edges and of the background a little bit more. And it really helps the player to pop out from the background there. And if you want to, you can always do a free transform to widen the area a little bit. I think that looks pretty cool. And that just kind of brings your focus and the viewer's eye back to the center, which is what we want in this particular case. So again, you can take all these layers and even put them in a group all by itself. And I know this is going a little bit overboard here, but I just want to do this so I can show you guys where we started and where we ended up. So in a pretty short amount of time, you can do some pretty cool stuff. Just based off of the 5 tips that I showed you guys in the previous video. And you can really take this as far as you want. you could always come back in and tweak the colors and add more overlay highlights and things like that. Oops, still had that checked off. Or you can even say select a color from the background. Let's select that light color right there. Add a gradient on top, and then play with the blending mode here. I usually like to use either screen, color dodge, linear dodge, and just add it on the front of the player, and that will really help tie him in to the background. You can do this with any color. If you want to match the color of your background, and just experiment, have fun with it, guys. Merge those. And there you go. That's it, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you for watching. If you liked it, please be sure to share it, tweet about it, leave a comment, and let me know if there's any particular things you guys want to see me cover in future videos. And also be sure to subscribe and sign up for our YouTube channel and for our website. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.